The principal. My dad burst into my room on the 5th year anniversary of Mom's death and twirled his car keys. Come on, son, we're going to visit her. He smelled funny and
Sometimes like
my dad burst into my room on the 5th year anniversary of Mom's death and twirled his car keys. Come on, son, we're going to visit her. He smelled funny and grabbed my wrist tight, dragging me out to the car. He put on Mom's favorite song and began fumbling with his keys before I could even say a word. He peeled out of the driveway and instantly slammed his foot on the accelerator, doing 90 in a 60. I gripped my headrest in fear and told him, "Dad, please slow down." But he just caressed his and Mom's wedding photos taped to the dashboard, whispering, "I'll see you soon." The speedometer climbed past 100 and my heart pounded because his hands kept sliding off the wheel. I screamed, "Dad, no. Mom died because a driver hit her. Don't become the driver that took her." But he instantly turned to me. "Don't talk about my wife." His eyes were off the road as he slurred his words. A truck horn blared and swerved around us, and I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. I dialed 911 and screamed, "Please trace this call. My dad." But then I felt his hand snatching my phone. He threw it out the window and laughed. "We're visiting Mom tonight, one way or another." Oakwood Cemetery came into view, but Dad barely slowed down. I gripped my seat, bracing between my sobs, when Dad turned hard. Our car skidded, and we slammed headfirst into a van coming out of the cemetery gate. The airbags exploded, and I lay there with my face pressed against the white fabric. Blood trickled from my ear as my head pounded, but then I saw Dad slumped over the wheel. I tapped his shoulder. "Dad, are you okay?" But he wouldn't move. I shook him while Mom's favorite song played in the background, and that's when I saw the empty bottle under his feet. The other driver dialed 911, and suddenly an officer was prying open our car. He pressed his fingers to Dad's neck and yelled over his shoulder, "We don't have a pulse. Call an ambulance." My legs collapsed, and a cop came over and put a blanket over my shoulders. "Where were you going tonight?" I looked at them covering Dad in white cloth. "To visit my dead mom." My dad burst into my room on the 5th year anniversary of Mom's death and twirled his car keys. "Come on, son, we're going to visit her." My wife walked into our kitchen and found me leading 4 grown men in worship around her air fryer. I'd been the family cook for 15 years. My oven was sacred, so when she brought home that 6-quart air fryer last Monday, I called it a glorified hairdryer and told her I'd never touch it. Friday night, she went to her sister's. I had frozen wings, an empty stomach, and an oven that took 35 minutes to preheat. I caved. 8 minutes later, I was holding a perfectly crispy wing like I'd just discovered fire. I ate the whole bag. Saturday, I met my drinking buddies at Murphy's and slid a container of leftover wings across the table. Greg laughed. "You dragged us out for cold wings? Those wings took 8 minutes. Mike scoffed. "In what? The microwave? Air fryer." Pete shook his head. "Bro, no. Come to my house tonight." Greg gave me a slow blink. "If you're trying to sell me something, I'm walking right back out." That night, I dimmed the kitchen lights and set the air fryer in the middle of the counter with 3 trays of raw wings beside it. The buddies walked in laughing. 8 minutes later, they weren't. Greg whispered, "Oh my God." Pete sat down on the kitchen floor. Mike pulled out his phone and started filming. That's when she came home. She stood in the doorway with her purse still on her shoulder and stared at 4 grown men hovering around her air fryer like it was holy. I held out a wing. She walked over, took it, and bit down. Her eyes closed. I nodded. "I know." Greg whispered, "Praise be." She turned to me. "I told you." I raised both hands in the air. "You told me." My wife walked in. I just completed a number 2 on my crush's toilet, and while keeping my eyes glued to my Roblox match, I flushed and went to stand up. But as I tried to move, my legs wouldn't budge. They were dead. I grabbed the sink to haul myself up, but my legs folded and I hit the tile. Cold water soaked through my socks. I turned, and the bowl was overflowing, water creeping across the floor toward me. My body started pumping with adrenaline because if I couldn't think of a solution, then my chances with my crush would be cooked. I was on the floor, trying to move my legs like a bicycle to get the blood flowing, when I heard a loud knock on the door from my crush's dad. "You good in there, son?" I scratched my head. Yep, all good. Just need a minute." I threw toilet paper at the water to soak it up, but it turned to mush in my hands. So I ripped my shirt over my head and shoved it across the floor like a mop. The bowl gurgled and burped up brown water all over it, and the smell was so rancid that my eyes instantly started watering. I buried my head in my hands because I was sure I was screwed. The handle started to turn, and my crush's dad announced he was coming in. I lunged for the lock, but my legs still wouldn't hold me up. The door swung open. He stood there staring down at me on the floor, shirtless, sitting in it. He pinched the bridge of his nose but didn't say a word. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed the plunger off the wall, and got down beside me to fix the toilet. When it finally drained, he pulled a towel off the rack and handed it to me. "You're the first kid my daughter has brought home that I've actually liked, so she doesn't need to know about this." My mouth dropped because I couldn't believe my crush's dad was the chillest guy ever. But when I put my fist out for him to bump it, he nodded at the phone still glowing on the floor. "Just cut down on the Roblox, aight? I just completed Every cop in my unit said I brought home the wrong dog until he saved 300 kids. I was sitting next to my K9's grave when I heard footsteps behind me. The captain walked up and put a hand on my shoulder. I know Max was your best friend, but you need to move on. His hand slid off my shoulder. I called the breeder. Your new shepherd's ready Friday. Friday morning, I was on my way to the breeder when I saw a dog shelter from the highway. Something in me pulled me off the road and into the shelter's parking lot. I walked down every aisle, but none of the dogs looked like Max. I was about to leave for the breeder when I heard a bark behind me. I turned around and saw a husky in the last kennel pressing his nose to the bars, tilting his head at me the way Max used to when he was figuring something out. I pulled out my phone and called the captain. Cancel the breeder. I found my dog. I hung up and signed the papers before I could talk myself out of it. The next morning, I pulled into the precinct with Atlas in the passenger seat. The captain walked over, stopped 6 feet from us, and said it like a verdict. You brought home a husky. The other handlers behind him started laughing. I crouched down and put a hand on Atlas's head. This is Atlas. He's going to be the best K9 this department has ever had. The captain doubled over laughing. Huskies aren't K9 dogs. They're sled dogs in costumes. Our trainer walked around Atlas and shook his head. 2 months. He'll wash out. Day 1. Atlas couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. Day 12, he sniffed out an explosive sample buried under 3 feet of mulch that Max would have missed. Day 40, the trainer put his clipboard away and started watching him. Day 90, Atlas graduated top of his class with a perfect score on explosive detection. 6 months later, I was at my desk eating lunch when dispatch radioed in a bomb threat at an elementary school that wasn't a drill. I clipped Atlas into his vest before I'd finished the call, and we were on scene in 12 minutes. Kids were being walked out in lines by their teachers. We swept the cafeteria, the gym, and 3 hallways before Atlas stopped dead outside a janitor's closet. His ears flattened against his head, and he wouldn't move. I called bomb squad over the radio. They cracked the door open and found 2 pipe bombs wired together behind a supply rack. They evacuated 312 kids. The captain, who'd called him a sled dog in costume, crouched down and pinned a medal on his harness himself. That weekend, I drove Atlas out to Max's grave. I knelt next to the headstone and Atlas sat down beside me. I put my hand on Max's name carved into the stone. You'd have loved Atlas, buddy. He saved 300 kids while every cop in my unit said I brought home the wrong dog. Every cop in my unit said I brought I was 7 when my dad got ready to leave me and my mom. I'll be home soon. I'm going to find us diamonds, and we'll be rich forever. I grabbed his hand. I don't want diamonds. I want you. He laughed. You'll understand when you're older, son. He kissed my mom and walked toward the road, and neither of us knew if we were ever going to see him again. For the first few years, my dad sent letters from everywhere he went. The first one was from Africa, with a photo drawn of him waist deep in a red pit, grinning, along with a note promising that the next dig would be the one where he found diamonds. The next came from Spain, then France, then Italy. Every single one promised he'd be home soon. My mom set his place at dinner every night anyway, watching the road through the window while his food went cold. I worked the field so she wouldn't have to, and when years went by with no word from him, I sold the farm to a quiet man. Me and my mom did our best to move on, and we thought we'd never hear about him again. But 10 years later, I was reading an article in the newspaper that said the farmer we'd sold the farm to had pulled the biggest diamond in the country out of the river. The quiet man who bought it is a billionaire now. My dad had traveled the world to find what he'd had all along, and the whole time, diamonds lay right under his feet. I was 7 when my dad got ready to leave me and my mom. I'll be home soon. I'm going to find us diamonds, and we'll be rich forever. Me and my dad pulled into the auto shop, and he told me, "Stay in the car while I run in and buy window protection for our car. I'll only be 2 minutes." He stepped outside, and I sat in the car staring at the hazard lights button with curious eyes. Dad always said, "That's the self-destruct button. If you press it, the car will blow up and kill everyone." I really wanted to try the button, because I never believed it. I slowly reached my finger towards it, and I felt myself sweating, but I told myself it was just a button, and drove my index forward. The button pressed, and I immediately closed my eyes, bracing for an explosion. But nothing happened. I sat up grinning because I was right, and Dad was wrong. But then the hazard lights clicked on. A steady ticking sound filled the car. Tick, tick, tick. It sounded exactly like the timer Dad always said would be the 30-second countdown before the car exploded. My legs buckled, and I realized Dad was right. I had 30 seconds to leave the locked car before I blew up for real. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, but Dad wouldn't answer fast enough. I cried and began banging the windshield, but he was inside the store leisurely browsing the shelves. Other people looked on, but the ticking continued. continued, and I knew I had no time. I looked back and saw Dad's golf club leaning against the back seat. I didn't want to do it, but I grabbed it and mentally apologized to Dad, swinging it as hard as I could into the window. The glass shattered, and the car alarm instantly blared, and I jumped through the gap. I sprinted towards the store, while Dad ran outside to see why his car alarm was going off. I lunged into him and cried, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I pressed the self-destruct button. The car is gonna blow up." Then I turned to all the people who were staring at us. "My dad's car is gonna blow up. You have to run." They instantly started backing away and calling the police because they'd just seen a child break out a car they thought would explode. My dad stared at his car's blinking hazards lights. Me and my dad pulled into the auto. My homies pulled a folded jersey out of a paper bag, and my hands were shaking before I even touched it. Andre and Big Trey had pooled their money for it. It was a real gold and purple Lakers jersey, James on the back, and the 23 stitched on, not printed. Big Trey held it up against me, and the bottom hit past my knees. "Braun for all," I whispered the way I always did before every shot. Andre grabbed his ball. "Let's go ball before Ryder hogs the court." We ran out, and he was already there in those limited LeBron 22s I'd been wanting since they dropped. Big Trey nudged me. "He's gonna want that jersey." He clocked the jersey from across the court and stopped what he was doing. "Y'all see this? Bro is 4'10" in a LeBron jersey. Who let LeBaby out the crib?" I told him to shut up and kept walking. He stepped in front of me. "Bet you can't dunk in that thing. You dunk one time, my 22s are yours. You miss, the jersey's mine." A crowd was forming before he finished the sentence. I looked over at my homies, and Andre flicked his eyes to Big Trey, who gave a tiny nod. I dropped my backpack and walked under the rim. I jumped as high as I could, and my fingertips came up about a foot short. Ryder doubled over laughing. "Hand it over, LeBaby," but Andre grabbed my arm and pulled me into a huddle with Big Trey. "We got you. Eyes closed. Braun for all. Trust us." I walked back to the free throw line with Ryder still laughing. I took one dribble. I closed my eyes and screamed "Braun for all" at the top of my lungs and felt my feet leave the ground. When I opened them, I was hanging from the rim. Ryder's mouth was open, and the whole court had gone silent. I dropped down into Big Trey's arms and saw his hands still up where my ribs had been. That's when I knew. They had launched me, with Big Trey catching me under the arms and throwing me at the rim while my eyes were shut. Andre had been the one shouting eyes closed. Ryder bent down, untied the 22s, and slid them across the concrete to me without a word. I sat down right there on the court and pulled them on. They fit perfect. I tapped my chest right where the 23 was stitched. "Leave 'em, leave 'em, leave 'em. I ain't Braun for all no more. I'm all for Braun." My homies pulled a folded jersey out of a paper bag, and my hands were shaking before I even touched it. Andre and Big Trey had pooled. I dropped in at the skate park to show my 14-year-old son what his old man used to do, and broke my hip in 2 seconds. I hit the concrete on my side, the knee I'd torn at 23 on fire. The dragon from 20 years ago was staring up at me from where my deck had landed. Down in the bowl, half a dozen teenagers were laughing so hard, one kid was wheezing into his hands. Another one leaned over the rim with his hands cupped around his mouth. "You break a hip, old-timer?" My son was laughing right along with them. I limped over to my deck, picked it up, and tucked it under my arm. The same kid cupped his hands again. "Yeah, go home, old head, before you embarrass yourself again." I started walking toward the parking lot. The wheezing kid scrambled out of the bowl behind me. Yo, wait." I stopped and turned around to find him standing 10 feet away with both hands on top of his head, his eyes locked on the dragon. "Where did you get that board?" "Off the line at my own signing. I designed the whole pro deck." 3 seconds later, the whole park had gone silent. The kid in the bowl stopped mid-trick, and the girl on the bench dropped her phone in her lap. The wheezing kid grabbed his friend's arm and pointed at the dragon. "It's him. It's the dragon deck." Another kid dropped his board mid-step and ran over to me. "My uncle has your poster in his garage." His friend pushed past him to get closer. "My dad watched your last contest live." A third kid was already sprinting over from the half pipe. "My brother said you would have been better than Tony Hawk if you hadn't blown your knee out." My son hadn't moved the whole time. He walked through the teens, took the board out of my hand, and traced the dragon with his finger. "Dad, can I have it?" I dropped in at the skate park to show my 14-year-old son what his old man used to do. I watched my roommate get strapped to a giant wheel for Hell Week. I looked around the lawn. Pledges were puking into buckets, drinking out of red cups, and crawling through the dirt. The Kappa letters were lit up over the front porch, and frat guys were screaming over each other at every station. I walked up to the wheel and grabbed my roommate's arm. "Pledging is stupid. I drove here to take you home." He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. He shook his arm free and looked past me at the pledge master. "Spin me." They cranked the handle until his head was a blur. They cut him loose, and he stumbled 4 steps and threw up into a bucket. He wiped his mouth on his sleeve and grinned at me. me. I'm getting in. The pledge master walked him to the next station. They handed him a fifth of vodka and a tray of hot dogs and told him to finish both before he could move on. He drank until his eyes watered and chewed until he couldn't close his mouth. He looked at me with mustard on his chin. Almost there. Two of them backed a pickup truck onto the lawn and tied a rope from the bumper to his belt. The pledge master told him he had to keep up at a jog or get dragged. He kept up for 30 yards. Then he didn't. The whole lawn cheered as he was dragged across the grass on his stomach. They cut him loose and he stood up with grass stains on his teeth. One more. They walked him to the obstacle course at the edge of the lawn. The first section was a long bed of dog bones laid across the grass. They told him he had to walk across it barefoot. He took his shoes off and went across without stopping. The next section was a bed of Legos. He stepped onto the first one and made a sound I've never heard a person make. He kept walking. He came out the other side, leaving red footprints in the grass, and laughed at the sky. The pledge master pointed at the last station, a row of stones laid out across the fire pit, flames already coming up between them. He told my roommate that was the final challenge. Walk across barefoot, and he was in. My roommate took one step toward it, then another. I crossed the lawn at a sprint. I grabbed his arm before his foot left the ground, and I yanked him backward into the grass. He went down and stayed down. He looked up at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Bro, I'm almost in. The pledge master walked over. He's got one stage left. Let him finish. I didn't look at the pledge master. I picked my roommate up under both arms, and I walked him off the lawn the way you walk a drunk friend out of a bar. He didn't fight me. By the time we reached the sidewalk, his legs were giving out, and he was leaning his whole weight on me. He looked at the house over his shoulder. Did I get in? I didn't answer. I watched my roommate get strapped to a giant wheel. I made a kid cry at my son's career day, and I'd do it again. On the way there, Liam begged, "Please don't come, Dad. I don't want you to be sad. I don't want you to be the only one without a parent." I walked into that classroom, and every other parent was dressed in a suit. Accountants, therapists, one guy was even a heart surgeon. I had my best outfit on because I wanted Liam to know his dad mattered just as much as anyone else's. When it was my turn to present, one kid, I'll call him Benjamin, took one look at me and started laughing. He pointed at my wrist. "Your watch is fake. You look like a bum." I held it up. "My dad got me this from Walmart when I was a kid, and I've worn it every day since." Benjamin yelled out that I looked like the kind of guy who wears Walmart watches, and the other kids started laughing. I looked across the room and saw my son put his head down between his hands. I cleared my throat and started talking about my job as a waste collector in New York City, and how jobs like mine are the backbone of society, because we do the work nobody else wants to. Benjamin shouted, "Waste collector? That must have been where you found Liam." The whole class burst out laughing, and I watched my son's eyes fill with tears. He could say whatever he wanted about me, but he just came after my son. I had noticed Benjamin's dad wasn't anywhere in that room, and Liam had warned me in that car that Benjamin didn't have a dad, so I should keep my mouth shut about it. But I didn't care. I looked Benjamin dead in the eyes and said, "At least Liam has a loving father. Yours left you." And honestly, I don't blame him. You're the first ever child I'd actually blame for a divorce, you insufferable little shit. I made a kid cry at my son's career day, and I'd do it again. On the way there, the principal announced, "Code Red, this is not a drill," 4 times. Code Red meant there was a shooter, and we needed to lock the door, turn off the lights, and hide. But our substitute Mr. Pell was standing next to the open door with the lights still on, and said, "I'm only allowed to follow your teacher's lesson plan, and it just says to do your worksheet, so you're going to keep doing the worksheet." Every other classroom had already locked their door and turned off the lights. A kid in the back stood up. "Mr. Pell, we need to hide or we're going to die. If your teacher sees the worksheet isn't done, I'm going to get fired." A girl screamed down the hallway, and then we heard 2 loud popping sounds. "Mr. Pell, that was a weapon. Please close the door." Mr. Pell laughed. "That was a chair falling over. Sit down." Then a girl said, "The news says there's a shooting here. Please close the door. You need to listen to the lesson plan, not the news. Now be quiet and do your work." That's when I had enough. I ran to the door and pushed it shut. I locked it and flipped the lights off. Mr. Pell gasped, "How dare you disobey the lesson plan? I hope you get fired." "Everyone hide," I said. Everyone hid in the back of the classroom. Mr. Pell still tried to unlock the door, but I blocked him. "I'm not dying because of you." Mr. Pell gritted his teeth, and that's when we heard footsteps walking down the hallway. And then our door handle rattled, but the door was locked. But Mr. Pell was reaching to unlock it, so I punched him so hard, he knocked out. And then the footsteps walked away. Nobody said a word for 40 minutes, until the SWAT team knocked in a special way and said the shooters had been arrested. Then the principal came to our room and told Mr. Pell, "You left the door open during a school shooting. You're fired." Mr. Pell stormed up to me. "You got me fired. All you had to do was follow the lesson plan." I balled my fist like I was going to hit him again. He screamed like a little girl and hid behind the principal. The principal announced, "Code Red, this is not a drill," 4 times. Code Red meant there was a shooter, and we needed to lock the door, turn off the lights. The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said, "The pilot isn't who he says he is. Meet me in the back to talk." I knew she chose to tell me because of the military dog tags around my neck. I folded the napkin and slid it into my pocket, and that's when the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Hopkins, expecting smooth skies to Chicago." But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I waited 2 minutes and casually walked to the back, not knowing what to expect. The flight attendant was there with a man holding up a police badge. The man whispered, "I'm glad you're here. I'm an undercover cop." I knew something was wrong straight away. The flight attendant whispered, "I've flown with Captain Hopkins for 6 years. I don't exactly know what's wrong, but I know that's not Hopkins, and we're flying the wrong way." She showed me the flight map of where we were heading. The plane is heading toward an abandoned airport. I leaned over the map. My body was pumping with adrenaline because it was the perfect place to crash a plane. There's an empty space above the pilot's room. I can climb up and listen to what the pilot and co-pilot are planning through the ceiling. "Take my number. If you can tell there's something fishy going on, text me one word. Now." That's the signal to move. And to distract everyone while I climbed above the ceiling, the flight attendant made an announcement on the speakers to tell everyone to keep their seatbelts on. Through the cracks, I could hear 2 men in the pilot's room talking. 15 years ago today, our brother died because of Captain Hopkins. Now we get to crash his plane with him tied up on it while we impersonate him. I texted the undercover cop. Now, the cart slammed into the pilot's room door, and the cop kicked it open. I dropped through the ceiling and tackled the fake pilot out of his seat. The cop pinned the co-pilot to the floor. The flight attendant grabbed the radio. "Mayday, our pilot is gone. We need help landing right now." She looked at me. "Find Hopkins, the actual pilot. He has to be on this plane somewhere." I sprinted to the back of the plane, checking every door. I yanked open the closet next to the bathrooms, and Captain Hopkins was inside with his hands tied and tape across his mouth. I ripped the tape off. "Get me to the controls." He ran to the front and dropped into the pilot's chair. He grabbed the wheel. "Tower, this is the real Captain Hopkins. I'm landing this plane." When we finally landed, the cops dragged the brothers off in handcuffs. The flight attendant came up to me in the aisle. I pulled the napkin out of my pocket and held it up. "You saved 200 lives with this." She smiled and took it back. The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said, "The pilot I put on my headset to game with the boys, but quickly realized it wasn't my friends I was hearing. It was 2 men, mid-sentence. "Our foreign policy won't change while he's in that cabinet, and he won't listen to his advisors." My heart dropped, and I listened closer. And when I heard, "We can't leave the election to chance. The state needs our party," I realized I was listening in on a government conversation. I looked through my lobby with shaking hands, thinking about how this was possible. "We do it before the vote," the man said. "Make it look self-inflicted." That's when I saw my mic light was turned green. Whoever was on the other side could hear me, and they'd know I was listening in. I muted it so fast I knocked the controller off my lap, so scared my body trembled. Then I grabbed my phone and instantly texted the boys, "Come to my house now. Drop everything." The 4 of them were here in minutes, and I pressed the mic into Reese's hands. He listened in, and his hands immediately flew in the air. "We definitely shouldn't be able to hear this, so if anything happens, remember, I am not suicidal." He laughed, and I couldn't believe he was joking about this. They took turns passing the mic to each other while my hands shook, but then the voice nearly made me collapse. "We do it in 7 days. If anyone finds out about this, you know what to do." My blood ran cold as I stared at the headset, and that's when I caught Reese out of the corner of my eye. His thumb was on his phone, and I realized he'd been recording my headset for the last 2 minutes. He'd captured everything. I screamed, "Reese, stop," and reached for his phone, but he smiled and leaned away from me. Then he typed something and turned his screen towards me, and I saw the video he just took was now posted to his story. Anyone in the world could see it. My hands went numb, and I shook just thinking about what the government would do to me. Reese tapped my shoulder. "You can't even see our faces, dude. It's fine." He went to put the headset back on. I immediately ordered everyone out of the house, then locked the doors and stared at my headset, clutching my pillow in fear. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't sleep, but when I checked my phone at 3 a.m., Reese's story was taken down. I texted him, but he never even read my message. I walked to school next morning, expecting men in suits to pop out of every bush, but they never did. And during math, Reese's desk was empty. While walking home, I decided to go check on him, but when I reached left his house, I nearly got sick. Police were surrounding it, as the whole area was blocked with tape. I nervously asked an officer what happened. He shook his head, but I begged him, "Please, sir, Reese is my best friend." The officer knelt down, looking like he was about to cry. Official reports state Reese went crazy last night. His whole family is dead as a result. My face drained of color, and I just nodded and walked back home. Reese's words echoed in my mind. If anything happens, I am not Sewers Lytle. I grabbed my headset in silence and didn't dare try turn it on. I put on my headset to game with the boys, but quickly realized a teenager tortured my dog for fun, then threatened to do it again. My dog had gone missing for a few hours, and when I finally found him, he was standing outside another house in my neighborhood. He was covered in bruises, his eye was swollen shut, and blood was still dripping down his side. The teenager walked out and didn't apologize. He just told me to keep my dog on a leash, or he'd do it again. I rushed him to the vet, but he was too far gone. I had to put him down just to spare him the suffering. That dog was the only memory I had left of my late wife, Helen. So I called in a few favors and found out everything about this kid, his school, his job, his girlfriend. He was enrolled at a Catholic private school, and when I told them what he did, they expelled him within the week. His girlfriend was vegan and an animal lover, so convincing her to break up with him was easy. I sprinkled in a few lies, and she destroyed his car for revenge. Then my friends and I posed as customers at his job and filed complaints until his manager fired him on the spot. His life was gone within days, and as he was walking home after getting fired, I ran him over with my truck. A teenager tortured my dog.
The popular girls ranked every guy in our grade by attractiveness, so I ranked them by weight. Someone texted me, "Sorry bro," with a link. Every guy in our grade ranked by attractiveness and height. I was a 5. The comment next to my name said, "Average face, below average height, would not recommend." Other comments were worse. "Would be cute if he wasn't built like a middle schooler." The whole thing was anonymous, but everyone knew who made it. Tiffany and her crew. You couldn't miss Tiffany. Built like Jabba the Hutt stuffed into a Brandy Melville top, but she ran the school so nobody said anything. By the next Monday, 3 guys had deleted their socials. One kid, Darnell, stopped coming to school entirely. I saw his mom picking up his homework from the front office. She looked like she'd been crying. The girls thought it was hilarious. I heard Tiffany in the hallway saying, "It's just a joke. Guys are so sensitive." I tried to do it the right way first. Went to the school counselor and showed her the list. She said she'd look into it and did absolutely nothing. A week later, the list was still up with more comments being added. Someone ranked Darnell a 1.5 and wrote, "Generous." He still wasn't back at school. I caught Tiffany at her locker between classes. "The list is hurting people. Darnell hasn't been to school in 2 weeks. You need to take it down." She looked at me with this fake pity face. "Aw, are you upset about your little 5? Don't worry, I'm sure someone will settle for you eventually." Her friends howled. I didn't react. "So you'd be okay if someone did the same thing to you?" She laughed. "No one would dare." I nodded. "You're probably right." That night I sat in my room thinking about what would actually get through to her. Words didn't work. Authority didn't work. The only thing Tiffany would understand is feeling exactly what she made everyone else feel. So I opened a Google Doc and started typing. Got the weights from Instagram posts, beach photos, anything public. Estimated where I had to. Spent 3 days on it. Made sure it was brutal. Made sure Tiffany was right at the top. Friday lunch, I dropped the list at exactly noon. Within 10 minutes, it spread to every corner of the cafeteria. Girls were crying, screaming. One girl threw her phone across the room, but I kept my eyes on Tiffany. She was holding court as usual when someone handed her their phone. She squinted at the screen, scrolled. Her smile disappeared. Scrolled more. Her face went red, then purple. She was number 1, 187 pounds. Comment, not even Ozempic could save this one. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. Her eyes scanned the cafeteria until they found me. I waved. She marched over with her whole crew behind her. "You think this is funny? This is disgusting. This is body shaming. I'm reporting you." I stayed calm. "Body shaming? That's crazy. It's just a joke." "This isn't a joke. This is harassment." "Is it? Because when I told you to take your list down, you said it was just a joke. You said guys need to stop being so sensitive." The cafeteria went dead silent. "The difference is you ranked guys by height and attractiveness, things they were born with, things they can never change. I ranked by weight, something anyone can change if they wanted to." For the first time, she had nothing to say. Her friends backed away. We both got detention. Someone finally dared. The popular girls ranked I walked into the parking lot and immediately noticed a The popular girls ranked every guy in our grade by attractiveness, so I ranked them by weight. I walked into the parking lot.
When I saw the girl who killed my son laughing at his funeral, I snapped.
I walked into the parking lot and immediately noticed a frat guy making fun of someone mentally challenged. He was just trying to go inside when the frat guys stopped him, made him get down on his knees, and start cleaning his shoes. I felt horrible because he actually started doing it. I started walking towards him ready to say something, but I could see him taking out his phone. Then I heard all of the other guys start laughing because he was patting him on the head saying, "Good idiot." I was ready to yell at him, call him everything he deserved, but then I froze. I looked over and saw someone else walking towards him. This guy was absolutely massive. He was probably 6 feet 6 inches and looked like he could bench press my car. The worst part was he was absolutely seething with rage. The frat guy was too busy making fun of him to notice, but his friends saw him. They all froze, and just as the frat guy turned around, he slapped him so hard across the head, his entire 140-pound body completely folded like a chair. He hit the ground, and the big guy helped him up. Then he took his phone and made him clean his shoes. Every time he stopped, he slapped him. I walked into the parking lot.
When I saw the girl who killed my son laughing at his funeral, I snapped. Not a seeing red snap, not a crashing out snap, a cold, calculated snap. She had accused him publicly with no proof, but her father was a congressman, so nobody questioned her. The whole city sent him death threats until he couldn't take it anymore. The courts would never touch her, so I decided to handle it myself. 20 years as a cop meant I knew people, dangerous people who owed me favors. I made one phone call. "Remember when I let your brother walk? Time to repay that debt." Within 3 months, every dirty deal that congressman ever made was on the news. The feds didn't just arrest him, they seized everything. House, cars, bank accounts. His wife and daughter ended up on the streets. They went online begging for sympathy. That's when I spread rumors about her. How she'd falsely accused other boys before my son. How she destroyed lives for fun. People started recognizing her everywhere, throwing rocks at her head. One afternoon I was driving and saw her crying on the sidewalk with her mother, so I ran her over. When I saw the girl who killed my son,
The lockdown alarm started blaring in class. "Lockdown, school shooter." Our whole class panicked, yelling to lock the door. But Mr. Carey said, "Wait, don't you want to see who it is? What are you doing? We need to hide." But he wasn't worried. "There's no shooter. Sit down." The alarm kept blaring. I could feel my sweat starting to drip. All the other doors slammed and lights clicked off, except for ours. We were sitting targets. "Turn off the lights." Amaya was crying, but he just walked to the window and opened the blinds wider. "Everyone needs to be visible. You're going to get us killed." But he wouldn't let us leave. "Sit your ass down." Kids were crying now. Ashley was hyperventilating. We were the only lit classroom on this wing. Sarah asked, "Why are you doing this?" But he just checked his watch. He should be here any second. But someone started banging on our door. "Please, let me inside." He started walking over. "Let me in. He's coming." Our teacher started smiling. "Who's coming?" "I don't know. Someone with a gun. Please." I recognized the voice. I was my friend Jackson. I reached for the door, but he slapped my hand. "Don't open it." I fell backwards. "He should be here." "Who?" But then we heard it. Jackson screamed from the hall, then a bang. Then it was perfectly silent. And just then, our teacher smiled and opened the door. Everyone screamed, "No, it's the shooter!" We saw him walk in with a gun, and we were all ready to die. But instead of shooting us, he looked at our teacher. "Hey, Dad, Dad!" Sarah gasped. The man had a gun in his waistband. He pulled it out. "Nobody needs to get hurt. We only need her." Mr. Carey pointed at Amaya in the back. "Her." Amaya screamed. "Why me? Your mother is Judge Estes. She put my son away for 10 years. He just got out. That has nothing to do with me. She took my son. Now I'm taking hers." They started walking towards Amaya. Everyone was terrified, but I had a crush on her for years and knew I couldn't let this happen. I would do anything for her. I looked over at Blake and he gave me a nod. I knew what I had to do, so I stopped them, saying, "You can't take her." He pointed the gun at me. "Move." "No, then you die too." I thought about my mom, my little sister, but I couldn't move. Amaya was crying behind me, but I wasn't backing down. "Shoot him," Mr. Carey said. He pointed the gun right at me. I was staring down the barrel, but I knew something he didn't. But that's when Blake snuck up behind them, and I saw he was ready. I saw him pick up a chair, and just as he swung it down, I reached for the gun. It hit him in the head hard, knocking him over, red spilling everywhere. Mr. Carey lunged at me, but I pointed it at him. "Back up, you psycho!" He started moving away. "Just give me the gun, kid." "No, you don't know how to use it." But I didn't care. "Point and squeeze. I'll figure it out. I should shoot you right now." He kept backing up, right towards Amaya, and grabbed her. He pulled a knife from his pocket, holding it up to her neck. "Do it, kid! Don't miss!" He was holding her, and if I accidentally missed him, she'd for sure die. "Let her go!" But I knew I had no choice. "Say goodbye to her!" He raised the knife, stabbing downwards, and in that moment, I squeezed the trigger. The gun fired, the bullet whizzing past Amaya and hitting Mr. Carey in the shoulder. He fell back just as the police burst in, and in that moment, we realized it was over. The lockdown alarm started blaring in class. "Lockdown!" My bank called and said someone just withdrew $100,000 from my account in Las Vegas, but I was in Pennsylvania. That was everything. 10 years of savings, emergency fund, down payment for a house, all of it gone in one night. I told them to freeze the account and rushed to the bank with numbing gel still in my mouth from the dentist. The bank pulled up the transaction details, multiple withdrawals from a casino, ATM starting at 1 a.m., 20,000, then 30, then 50. Whoever did this knew exactly how much was in there, and they had my debit card and PIN. That's impossible, I said. My card is right here, except when I reached for my wallet, it wasn't. My wife Rose called while I was still processing, "Where's your dad?" His phone's going straight to voicemail. I froze. My father was 72 and had been showing memory problems lately. Repeated stories, forgotten appointments. Last week he asked about taking my mother dancing. She'd been dead for 5 years. "When's the last time you talked to him?" 2 days ago? He seemed fine, but she trailed off. We both knew something was wrong. The bank manager showed me security footage from the casino. ATM grainy, but I could see someone in a baseball cap and jacket. Something about the way they stood looked familiar. When they zoomed in, my blood went cold. That was my father's Steelers jacket, the one I bought him 3 Christmases ago. I called him 15 times. Nothing. Called his neighbors. Called the police for a wellness check. They called back 20 minutes later. Car's gone. Mail piled up. Looks like he left days ago. Rose met me at his house. His medications were still in the cabinet, passport still in the drawer. But on his kitchen table was an old photo album open to pictures of my parents in their 20s. My mom wearing a showgirl costume. My dad looking young in a cheap suit. Underneath was a Vegas postcard from 1978. Then my phone rang. Nevada number. "Is this Bryce Welts? Your father is at University Medical Center in Las Vegas. He's stable, but there's been a situation." I flew out that night. Found him in a hospital bed looking confused and small. The doctor said he'd been found at a roulette table at 6 a.m., disoriented, unable to remember where he was staying. He kept talking about his wife being in the Showgirl review. Kept saying he needed to win big to impress her. He thought it was 1978. Thought my mother was still alive and 24 years old. The dementia specialist explained that he'd taken my debit card during dinner 2 weeks ago without even remembering, then flew to Vegas thinking he was young again, trying to relive the trip where he'd proposed to my mom 46 years ago. I sat with him for hours, trying to accept that our savings were gone, that my father's mind was going, that he'd never fully come back to us. That's when a casino manager walked into the hospital room. My father hadn't just been withdrawing money, he'd been gambling and winning. He turned $100,000 into $512,000 over 48 hours playing roulette. But now the casino was investigating us for fraud. They thought we'd sent a dementia patient in on purpose to exploit gambling regulations. We spent 6 months in legal hell proving his condition was real and undiagnosed. Eventually they settled and let us keep the money. My dad doesn't remember any of it. Sometimes he still asks when we're going to Vegas to see mom's show. My bank called and said someone just withdrew $100,000 from my account in Las Vegas, but I was in I made my school hire an exorcist with a Bluetooth speaker the size of my thumb. It was the middle of winter in 8th grade, and me and my best friend Devin had nothing going on. One night, he texted me a link to this tiny Bluetooth speaker, small but loud. So we came up with a plan that felt genius at the time. We'd hide the speaker in the ceiling above Mrs. Evans's desk, play fart sounds during English class, and grab it after school before anyone figured it out. During lunch, we snuck in, and I stood lookout while Devin climbed up and popped the tile. He dropped the speaker in, and we were out in 30 seconds. After lunch, we tested it with one fart sound, and the whole class erupted. Mrs. Evans just stood there asking who did that. Me and Devin almost passed out trying not to laugh. We planned to grab it after school, but Mrs. Evans stayed late grading papers until 5. We figured we'd get it tomorrow. That was our first mistake. Day 2, we kept it going. Different farts. A burp. One that sounded like a dying whale. Mrs. Evans was losing her mind, checking backpacks and desks. Day 3, the speaker was still up there because she never left the room. We figured why stop now? Day 4, things got weird. Other teachers heard it through the vents. The math teacher accused kids of hiding a phone. The science teacher thought his radiator was broken. By day 5, the principal made an announcement about unusual sounds in the building and said they were investigating. Day 6, maintenance checked the vents and pipes, found nothing. Day 7, the janitor, Mr. Rick, told kids he heard the sounds at night when no one was in the building. That's when kids started saying the school was haunted. Day 10, the speaker was still going. I looked up the battery life, and it said 8 hours. It had been almost 2 weeks. I started thinking something was actually wrong with this thing. Day 12, a parent called the school worried about demonic activity. Her daughter was too scared to come to class. Day 14, we had an emergency assembly, and the principal said they were bringing in a specialist. I thought maybe a plumber or electrician. Then Devin showed me the email his mom got. They hired an exorcist, an actual exorcist from a church 2 towns over. That's when I knew we had gone way too far. He showed up on a Monday morning, tall guy with gray hair and a long black robe carrying a Bible and holy water like he was about to battle a demon from a movie. Kids were glued to the windows. Teachers gave up trying to teach. The whole school just just watched this man walk down the hallway praying and splashing water on lockers. I was sitting in Mrs. Evans' class with my heart pounding. Devin was next to me, trying not to laugh. I whispered that we needed to come clean before this got worse. He whispered back that I was insane, and this was the best thing that ever happened to him. Then the exorcist stopped at our door. He stepped inside, and the entire room went silent. He walked to the middle of the class and closed his eyes and started praying real loud. That's when Devin made the worst decision of his life. He pulled out his phone under the desk and played one more fart sound. The exorcist's eyes shot open. Nobody moved. He looked up slowly at the ceiling right above Mrs. Evans's desk and asked for a ladder. Mr. Rick brought one, and the exorcist climbed up and pushed the tile aside. He reached in and pulled out a tiny, dust-covered Bluetooth speaker. He held it up and looked at it for a long time. Then he turned to Mrs. Evans and said, "Well, that's a first." Mrs. Evans looked confused for half a second before her face twisted into pure rage. She scanned the room and spotted Devin still holding his phone like an idiot. He gave her a little wave. I made my school hire an exorcist with a Bluetooth speaker the size of my thumb. It was the middle of Our teacher walked up to the dumbest student and asked, "You're not blind. Why are you wearing sunglasses?" She didn't say anything. She just shook her head and kept her head down. I said, "Take them off." Rhonda's hands went to the frames, held them against her face. "Please, I need them." Mrs. Porter leaned closer to Rhonda and said, "Take them off, or I'm taking them off for you." Rhonda was shaking now. Suddenly, Mrs. Porter grabbed them. Rhonda screamed and tried to hold on, but Mrs. Porter yanked them off her face. Rhonda's eyes, or where her eyes should have been, were swollen shut. Purple, black, yellow at the edges. Her whole face was bruised, cuts on her eyebrow, split lip I hadn't noticed under the frames. She looked like she'd been beaten with a bat. Mrs. Porter stumbled backward. What happened to you?" Rhonda didn't answer. She was crying now, tears leaking from swollen slits. Mrs. Porter looked at the sunglasses in her hand and saw there were tiny answers to the test written on the inside of the lenses. Mrs. Porter asked, "Were you cheating by writing the answers on the inside of your glasses?" Rhonda's voice cracked and she said, "Please, it's not my fault. I couldn't see. I couldn't study. My eyes were swollen shut all night. I didn't know what else to do." Mrs. Porter asked, "Who did this to you?" She didn't respond. I stood up, walked to her desk, and knelt down beside her. "Rhonda, who did this?" She looked at me through those swollen slits and whispered, "It was the school-appointed math tutor, Ms. Hutchins." I asked, "Is that the one who forced you to work with her when you failed the first exam?" Rhonda nodded. "She hits me when I get answers wrong. She says I'm stupid. She says I deserve it." She touched her face. "I got a lot wrong this week." I looked around the room. Every guy was already standing and getting ready to take action. Marcel, Devin, Spencer. Marcel spoke to the class while cracking his knuckles and getting ready to fight. He said, "She's in room 114. Devin rolled his neck. Spencer was already walking toward the door. I still don't know what happened, but Ms. Hutchins was escorted out in handcuffs with 3 broken bones. Our teacher walked up to the dumbest student and asked,
My neighbor kept destroying our snowmen, so I made sure the next one fought back. We'd spent the whole day building an 8-foot snowman, and it was just getting dark when I saw the headlights turn onto our street. The truck plowed straight through it, and snow exploded everywhere. My youngest was standing next to me and started crying. I didn't know how to tell him that some people were just mean, so I pointed at the scattered snow. "You know what though? Did you see how far the head flew? That was actually kind of cool." My youngest wiped his eyes and nodded. "It went really far." I smiled. "Next time let's build it right by the street and watch it happen." The next Saturday we built another one right by the street, and my boys pressed their faces against the window at night watching for the truck. When it came roaring down and demolished the snowman, they jumped up and down. "The head went so far, Dad." We did this for 3 years. Build, watch, rebuild. Then my youngest stopped running. He couldn't get out of bed some mornings. The doctors gave us a number of weeks, and my son made me promise we'd build one more. So I pushed his wheelchair outside, and he sat there wrapped in blankets pointing where to pack the snow. His brothers rolled the middle section while I lifted it into place. It took us all day. When we finished, I hammered stakes into the ground around it and tied rope. I wrote, "Please don't hit this one," on cardboard and hung it on the rope. 3 days later, he died. I knew they'd come for the snowman eventually, so I walked across the street and knocked on my neighbor's door. My hand was shaking. The father opened the door and I looked him in the eye. "My son just died. That snowman is the last memory I have of him. Please leave this one alone." He looked at me for maybe half a second, then shrugged. "That's rough and all, but it's just a snowman." I heard his son laugh from inside. The door slammed in my face. 2 days after we buried my son, I was lying in bed when I heard the engine. I ran to the window and watched headlights turn onto our street. The truck accelerated straight toward the snowman, hit dead center, and snow exploded into the air. The father was hanging out the passenger window cheering, and that's when I knew he had to pay. I went upstairs and shook my boys awake. "Get dressed. We're rebuilding it." We worked through the night rolling snowballs under the streetlights. My older sons didn't say anything, just kept packing snow. I built this one directly around the fire hydrant at the edge of my property. Carefully carefully positioning each layer around the metal. After they went to bed, I dragged the hose out and soaked it. I did this for 3 straight nights, watering and letting it freeze until the snow was solid ice. Then I sat by the window every night watching the street. My boys would come downstairs asking if tonight was the night. A week passed. Then I heard it. That engine. I grabbed my phone and started recording. The truck came flying down the street and slammed into my snowman at full speed. The sound was like a car crash, metal crunching. The truck's entire front end crumpled. The impact ripped the hydrant off its base and water shot 30 feet straight up into the air. The truck spun and water shot everywhere, flooding the street as the father kicked open his door and crawled out. When he turned to look at my house, my boys and I were standing in the window. We all raised our middle fingers at the same time and went to bed smiling. My neighbor kept destroying our snowmen, so I made sure the next A student walked into my English class swinging a katana, and I knew exactly where he got it. My best friend ran our school's black market. His dad was a bladesmith who had no problem cranking out professional knives and even swords for his son to sell at school. But a few days earlier, my friend sold to a kid everyone knew was mentally unstable. I specifically told him not to do it, but he shrugged me off, saying the kid was paying 25% more and not selling would be bad for business. So there I was in English when this kid walked in like a samurai and unsheathed a goddamn katana. He just eyeballed the teacher. Every student backed against the wall as fast as we could. Someone peed themselves in fear. We watched him inch closer, muttering something under his breath. When there was an opening to the door, everyone ran, leaving the teacher completely alone. We scattered through the halls screaming for help, but by the time staff arrived, it was too late. The teacher was alive, but missing a hand. The student had vanished. What came out in court is that this teacher had done inappropriate things to the student's sister. So as revenge, the kid took his hand. When asked where he got the katana, he just said, "The black market." My friend and his dad never faced any legal consequences. A student walked into my English class swinging a katana. A 375-pound girl broke into my room on my first day of boarding school with a piece of paper crumpled in her fist and told me we were now roommates. She walked over to my bedside and stuck the paper to my wall. It was a rules list, but it only had one rule. Sharing snacks with her was non-negotiable. I told her I couldn't eat sugar for medical reasons. She laughed and said I was lying, then warned me that if she finds me hiding snacks, there will be consequences. She spent the next few months raiding my stuff. I'd come back from class and find my drawers open and my family photos taken out of their frames in case I was hiding gummy worms behind them. She never apologized. Then one weekend my grandmother sent me homemade birthday cookies, the last batch she ever made before she died. I walked into the room and caught my roommate holding the last cookie, crumbs all over her shirt. She looked at me, smiled, stuck up a middle finger, and shoved it in her mouth. That's when I decided to make her pay. You see, I had a biology project about plants. I made my own fertilizer in the lab and poured all the dark brown sludge into an old soda bottle and slipped it in my bag. I got to my room, tossed the soda bottle on my bed, leaving it visible, and went to shower. 15 minutes later, I heard the sound of a bottle cap opening. I walked out and saw her standing in the middle of the room with the bottle at her lips. The entire half-gallon was almost empty. She was mid-gulp. Our eyes met. She threw up her middle finger at me again, but this time, I just smiled at her and did it back. Her face changed to confusion, but before she could even put her bottle down, her face turned green. She dropped to her knees and started puking all over the floor. She wouldn't stop. Every time she tried to breathe, more came up. I walked over, crouched down beside her, and told her she just drank wet horse manure mixed with mucus water. A 375-pound girl broke into my room on my first day of boarding school with a piece of paper. I called 911 on myself to get a free ride home. I woke up 22 hours later with a massive headache and no memory when my roommate high-fived me and called me Boozebert Einstein. Apparently drunk me pulled off the smartest thing he'd ever seen. It was 3 a.m. and we were completely hammered outside a bar. The problem was we were 30 minutes from home by car and 3 hours on foot. We couldn't call a cab because earlier that night we traded our last $20 to a stranger for 2 cigarettes. We had no money, no ride, and could barely stand, so drunk me came up with a plan. I called 911 and in my best girl voice said, "Hello, there's 2 drunk guys walking up 3rd Street yelling. Could you send someone to pick them up?" The officer replied, "Right away, ma'am, we'll send a car." 3rd Street was 5 minutes away, so I dragged my friend there and told him to start yelling. We shouted about the good old days until a cop car pulled up. They saw we weren't a threat, just 2 drunk idiots, so they offered us a ride. 30 minutes later, we were home. During the ride, I got into a heated debate with an officer about whether aliens exist. When I got inside, I microwaved a pizza pocket but accidentally set it to an hour and passed out. The microwave caught fire. When I woke up, I found an eighth of snow in my pocket. I sat in that cop car for 30 minutes with enough on me to catch a felony. Boozebert Einstein almost became Diddy's little plaything. I called 911 on myself to get a My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we learned Morse code. We tapped messages under the dinner table when Mom told us to stop talking and tapped through the wall between our bedrooms every night. When Chris got into a car accident and the doctor said he'd never wake up, I pulled up a chair next to his bed, took his hand, and tapped. "Are you there?" Nothing. But I came back the next afternoon and tapped again. Before I left, I always said the same thing. "See you tomorrow, Chris." A week later, Chris's fingers twitched against mine, and I almost fell out of my chair. I grabbed a nurse and she barely looked up. They're reflexes. It doesn't mean anything. I bought a notebook the next day and started writing down every single one. 4 months in, Mom watched me scribbling and said, "How long are you gonna keep doing this? Until he taps back." He's not gonna tap back. You're talking to a corpse. Dad lasted a few more months before he pulled me into the hallway. "We need to talk about donating your brother's organs. His fingers move every time I hold his hand, Dad. The nurses said those are reflexes. Stop getting your hopes up, son." I don't care what the nurses say. You're not donating my brother's organs. But a week later, my parents called to have Chris transferred to a long-term facility to die and scheduled a meeting to sign the papers. The afternoon before the meeting, I tapped into his palm like always, but this time, something tapped back. Short, short, short. Long, long, long. Short, short, short. SOS. I grabbed his hand. "Chris, if that's you, squeeze once." He squeezed so hard my knuckles cracked. I stormed into the meeting room and told them my brother just responded to me. The caseworker said, "This is very common with families who aren't ready to let go." My parents nodded. I grabbed the transfer papers off the table. "You're not signing anything until you come see for yourself." I walked them to Chris's bed and grabbed his hand. "Ask him anything." The caseworker asked what year it was. Chris squeezed out the answer. Count to 5. 5 perfect squeezes. His mother's name, tapped out letter by letter. By the 10th question, she said, "He's still alive. We can't move him." Weeks later, I asked Chris what kept him fighting when everyone gave up. Heard Mom call me a corpse. Heard Dad say donate my organs. Heard all of them leave, except you. I asked why. I wanted to see you too. My twin brother. The second my mom pulled up to my school, I saw she was mad. And as soon as I opened the car door, she held up my report card. "Are you kidding me? Not a single A on here." I tried to tell her I was sorry. I tried my best. She threw it at me. "Maybe if you didn't stay up all night tapping that dumb secret code on your brother's wall, you'd actually be able to focus." I felt my heart beating. I pulled out my phone to text my brother. "Mom's really mad. I think she might," but she grabbed it from my hand. Always on this stupid phone too. I could see her face turning red. But when I looked forward, "Mom, watch out." She saw the car too and screamed. It smashed right into us. Glass was everywhere and I hit my head. I didn't know where I was. I tried to open my eyes, but nothing was moving. Then I heard someone, "Listen, kid, he's never gonna wake up." "No, please, he has to." It was my brother. I tried moving my hands, screaming. Nothing worked. But then someone tapped my hand. I instantly recognized it. "Chris, are you there?" I squeezed my hand as hard as I could, but it didn't move. But he stood up. "See you tomorrow, Chris." I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Someone else came in. "We should just pull the plug. I'm not paying for a vegetable. We'll get more money from donating anyways." It was my mom. She was talking about selling me, but I was still here. Jake came back, tapping about his day. I knew I had to warn him. I squeezed my arm. It felt like concrete. "Please, anything. They'll kill me." Then it twitched. He gasped. He ran out to grab them. "That's just a reflex." "No, it's him. You're talking to a corpse." That night, I heard my mom. "He's gone. We need to pull the plug." I tried to move. Then, my shoulder twitched. My dad screamed. He moved." They were silent. "If he wakes up, we get nothing. We need to get that paperwork signed." They ran out, and I knew I didn't have long. I felt someone tap my hand again. "Chris, please wake up. They're gonna kill you." I squeezed. I needed a miracle. Then, my fingers moved. I said the first thing I thought of. SOS. "Chris, I knew it." He instantly ran out of the room. "Guys, he's awake. He's awake." They rushed in. I squeezed their hands. They saw it all. I heard my mom. "He's still alive. We can't move him." But I knew what she said. That night, I tapped it all out to my brother as he wrote it down. He couldn't believe it. Then, when I finally opened my eyes, they gasped. My mom hugged me. "Honey, you're alive." But I didn't hug her back. The doors opened behind them, and when the cops walked in, my parents looked nervous. "What's going on? Can we help you?" They were pissed. They slammed them both in handcuffs, and when they looked, Jake was holding up everything I said. I could barely move my arm, but used all my strength to raise my hand, then my middle finger. The second my mom pulled up to my school, I saw she was mad, and as soon as I opened the car door, she held up my twin brother Chris. The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said, Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad would yell, "Stealth mode," and we had 30 seconds to kill every light in the house. My brother and I would race through the rooms, flipping switches, yanking cords, shutting off the TV mid-show, while some guy outside banged on the front door yelling, "I know you're in there, buddy." Dad timed us. Once everything was dark, no talking, no moving, no looking out the windows. We'd sit there until Dad did his owl hoot, which meant all clear. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes almost an hour. Afterwards, he'd high-five us and go, "Real ninjas couldn't do better." later, he told us stealth mode was top secret. Never tell your teachers, your friends, nobody. Other people wouldn't understand. For years, I believed him. When I was 8, I asked Dad why we had to hide so much. He said some annoying guy kept bothering our family, and stealth mode was how we dealt with him. I felt proud we had a secret skill that could outsmart bad guys. By the time I was 10, I heard the voice outside yell something about a bet and $20. I tugged Dad's sleeve and whispered, "Is the bad guy trying to steal our money?" Dad shushed me so hard I flinched. When I was 12, I broke the window rule, peeked through the blinds, and saw a completely normal guy in a polo shirt standing on the porch rubbing his forehead. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like someone's tired uncle. At 13, I told Dad I was just going to open the door and tell the guy to leave us alone. The color left his face. "You absolutely cannot do that." That was the first time stealth mode didn't feel like a game. By 15 or 16, it barely happened anymore. But when it did, Dad would peek through the blinds looking guilty. Mom just shook her head from the couch and muttered something under her breath. I was 17 and home alone when I heard it. "I know you're in there. It's been 12 years, man." I opened the front door. The guy nearly fell backwards. Normal-looking dude, middle-aged, holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Oh, hi. Is your dad home? I'm his old college roommate." He held up the paper. "Your old man bet me $20 Michael Jordan wouldn't win his 6th ring. That was 1998. I've been knocking on this door ever since." He handed me the IOU, both their signatures, right there at the bottom. I left it on the kitchen table. Mom saw it first and laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Dad picked it up, read it, put it back down, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "So now he knows someone's home." Then he turned off the kitchen light and got under the table. We were never in danger. My dad just lost a bet because of the greatest of all time. Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad would yell, "Stealth mode." I became my school's hero for 1 minute before everyone watched what happened next. I don't play around when it comes to Halloween, so during our school's Halloween dance, I dressed up in real firefighter gear from my dad's closet. Real jacket, real boots, real helmet. I strutted around the gym like I owned the place, until the fog machine popped like a toaster and the fire alarm went off. Everyone cheered thinking it was part of the show until I smelled burnt plastic. Teachers started waving their arms, telling everyone to stay calm, but I noticed the orange extension cord powering the machine didn't stop at the wall. It ran out the side doors and down the hallway toward the science wing. Then someone near the door yelled, "Smoke in the hallway," and teachers started shouting for everyone to evacuate. Real sirens started wailing outside and fire trucks pulled up. The crowd poured into the parking lot while firefighters rushed through the main doors. That's when one of them spotted me standing near the entrance in full gear. "You, with us," he shouted. "We're clearing the east wing." I opened my mouth to say I'm just a student, but he shoved a flashlight into my hand and pushed me forward. The hallway was dark and filled with smoke. We followed the orange cord past the lockers until it disappeared under Mrs. Carter's classroom door. One of the firefighters reached for the handle and jerked back. "Hot," he said, then looked at me. "Hit it!" But I only had my foam axe. I swung as hard as I could and it bounced off with a pathetic squeak. The firefighter grabbed it, swung himself, and the foam bent in half. He stared at it, muttered, "These damn budget cuts," and tossed it aside. That's when someone shouted from down the hall and he waved to the others. "Forget this door. We'll circle back once we've got tools." They started heading back down the hall, but then I heard it. A squeaky wheel spinning frantically. This was Mrs. Carter's room, and the class pet Mr. Nibbles was still inside. I turned back to the door. The handle was glowing red. I wrapped my jacket sleeve around my arm and threw my shoulder into the bottom panel until it cracked open. Smoke poured out and choked me instantly. The hamster cage was on the counter and tiny flames were eating the papers around it. I grabbed the melted cord with my sleeve and yanked it from the wall. A spark bit through the fabric straight into my skin and I screamed but kept pulling until the plug came loose. I grabbed the cage with my smoking sleeve and the metal seared into my palm. I could smell my skin burning. My lungs felt like they were filled with glass and my vision was going black around the edges, but I ran. When I burst through the side door, I collapsed face first onto the concrete and threw Mr. Nibbles onto the grass so I wouldn't crush him. I could hear cheering as hands grabbed me and someone pulled off my helmet. A firefighter was staring down at me. "Kid, you're a hero." That's when I heard the scream. I turned my head and watched a hawk swoop down, grab Mr. Nibbles in its talons, and fly away. I became my school's hero for 1 minute before everyone watched what happened next. A man climbed onto our school bus with a knife, and the first thing he heard was a slow clap from the back row. Confused, he screamed at our driver, Mrs. Worley, to keep driving and not stop for anyone. A kid leaned forward. Nice ski mask. Did you cut the holes out yourself or did your mommy help you? The whole bus laughed. He waved the knife around. Shut up and no one gets hurt. Your hand is shaking so hard I can't tell if that's a threat or a dance move. He stepped toward the kid who said it, and 20 voices started talking at once. Oh, he's walking now. Everybody watch out. He spun around trying to find who said what, but insults were coming from every direction. Bro seriously hijacked a bus with no plan, no getaway car, and a Walmart knife. This is the saddest crime I've ever seen. We wouldn't let him finish a single sentence. Are you robbing us for money? All I have is an EBT card and a bus pass. He pointed his knife at Mrs. Worley, and the whole bus went silent. A kid stood up. You can threaten us all you want, but if you point that thing at Mrs. Worley again, we're gonna have a real different conversation. He laughed nervously and asked what a bunch of kids were going to do about it. A girl said, we're on the bus to the school for troubled teens. Half of us are here for assault, and the other half won't say why. Mrs. Worley looked at him over her shoulder. Honey, I've watched these kids make grown men cry over smaller things than pointing a knife at me. He lowered the knife. Smart choice. She brings us donuts on Fridays. We protect what matters. His face twisted, and he shoved toward the kid with the knife raised. Mrs. Worley pulled over, stood up, and stepped between them. That's enough now. He grabbed her arm and shoved her into the dashboard. For half a second, the bus was completely silent. Then a kid came over the seats like something feral, and 3 others were right behind him. The guy didn't have time to turn around before someone hit him in the back of the knees and he went down. The knife skittered under the seats, and kids were on top of him before he could reach for it. Someone had him in a headlock while someone else pinned his arms. A girl sat on his legs and went through his pockets just to add insult to injury. Mrs. Worley pressed the emergency button. I need police at my location. Tell them there's no rush. The situation is handled. The guy was crying. Please get off me. I can't breathe. A kid leaned close to his face. You should have thought about that before you touched Mrs. Worley. When the cops showed up, they found him tied to a seat with shoelaces and snot running down his face. A man climbed onto our school bus with a knife, and the first thing he heard in the middle of a training session, I saw a man's eye peeking out from inside the landing mat, watching the underage girls. Now I was coaching the freshman high jump team, and I knew if I exposed him right now, I'd forever scare them away from coming back. So instead, I decided to make him pay. I started sprinting and jumped over the bar, hitting the mat as hard as possible. The man groaned in pain, and I saw the zip on the mat moving. He was trying to get out. I told the girls to line up, and right as the gap in the mat was getting bigger, one of them jumped and crashed onto him. Again, he violently groaned and coughed. The girl looked down with a worried face. Ugh, what was that? I panicked because I knew I couldn't tell her, so I quickly grunted, saying it was just my stomach problems. I had every girl do the drill 5 times each, crash landing on him again and again. I stayed by the mat for every jump, and every time I saw him try to open it, I zipped it closed. He stopped grunting after 20 or so hits, and after training was done, I carried the mat out to the dumpster and called police. In the middle of a training session, I saw a man's eye peeking out from inside the landing mat, watching the underage girls. Now I was coaching the freshman high jump team, and I knew when they tried to put my brother with Down syndrome in prison, I burst out laughing. We couldn't afford to put my brother in a special program, so he was bullied constantly. He'd always just smile until he learned to middle finger people when they were mean, and when he made everyone laugh at them, they decided they needed to get revenge. He was walking with my mom, and a group of them decided to terrorize him. What's up, Extra Downy? They threw basically every chromosome joke at him they could, but when that didn't work, they moved on to my mom. She was pregnant, and they all threw things at her. Trying again, huh? One monkey baby wasn't enough? She was begging them, please stop, I'm pregnant. But they did not care one bit. She felt him clench her hand harder, and she was so scared, she started tearing up. My brother stayed calm, but the second he saw her starting to cry, he completely lost control. He immediately screamed, sprinting towards them full of rage. They were shocked, and he grabbed one of them, body slamming him onto the ground. The rest of them ran away, trying to get the attention of nearby police. He yelled, "You hurt mama," and he literally wouldn't stop swinging. The police had to grab them and cuff him. When the other kid's face was unrecognizable, they screamed to put him in jail. The judge took one look at him sitting there smiling and let him walk free. And as they screamed, he gave them his signature move. When they tried to put my brother with Down syndrome in prison, I burst I knocked out the smallest, weakest kid in school. While I was bench pressing, he cracked my ribs with a 5-pound dumbbell and smiled. That was Chester. He was 4'11", 85 pounds, and was the worst bully I ever met. His two brothers were 6'6", 300 pounds of pure muscle. Nobody touched Chester because they were terrified of his big brothers. I told the teacher, but he never believed that Chester had the strength to actually hurt anyone. I walked around with 2 cracked ribs for 3 months and couldn't laugh without wincing. A week later, my history teacher stepped out. Chester whispered into my ear, "Have you ever felt a tiger's claw?" Then he stabbed a pencil an inch deep into my back. I bled out onto the floor and everyone gasped. I needed 7 stitches. My teacher asked the class if anyone saw it. Every single student looked away. Chester smiled again. He was loving this power. PE baseball. Chester slammed a metal bat across my knee. I limped for a month. I still feel it when it rains. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anyone. I knew I had to handle this myself. So I started kickboxing. 5 days a week for 6 months straight. I sparred with semi-pros. Got beaten up badly at first. Then slowly started landing shots and earned their respect. I stored every one of Chester's hits in the back of my mind. I had a college scholarship and couldn't afford to risk losing it, so I waited for the last day of school. I walked up to him and said, "Hey Chester, have you ever felt a tiger's claw?" He looked confused. Before he could say a word, I threw everything, punches, kicks, elbows, and laid him out on the concrete, unconscious, bleeding out of his smug face. A crowd gathered and went completely silent. Then his 2 brothers pushed through the crowd and got in my face. "Try that shit on us. Go ahead, try it." I looked up at both of them and said, "You might kill me, but I'll take one of you with me to the grave. I swear it." They went quiet, glanced at each other, then walked away. For as big as they were, they had never actually been tested. Chester had 17 broken bones and ate through a straw for 4 months. No charges were pressed because even his own parents knew he had it coming. When I think about that day, I still get the warm and fuzzies. Brennan slammed his Beyblade down onto the girl with Down syndrome's tray and shredded her sandwich into pieces. She sat there stunned, tears welling up in her eyes. I turned to him furious. "You think it's okay to do that to her?" Brennan smirked. "Yeah, she's a window licker." He turned and walked off without looking back. Something inside me snapped. I stood up on the bench, pointed across the cafeteria, and screamed, "I challenge you to a Beyblade duel." The whole cafeteria gasped and turned to look. Brennan stopped mid-step. He slowly turned around with this evil grin spreading across his face. "You're on. Me and my boys versus you. Loser licks the bird poop off the table by the playground." By the time we got to the picnic table, the entire playground had circled around it 3 kids deep. Cohen pulled out a Beyblade with flames on it. Tate had a dragon. Brennan was twirling a black one with red spikes between his fingers. I unzipped my backpack and pulled out the one my older brother gave me for my birthday. Solid metal, no paint, no stickers. He told me, "This is Ragnarok. Don't use it unless you really need to." Brennan took one look and cackled. "What is that, a paperweight?" We loaded our launchers and Brennan counted us down. 3, 2, 1. Beyblade, let it rip. 4 Beyblades hit the dirt and sparks shot up wherever Ragnarok made contact. Crack. Ragnarok drilled into Cohen's and it shattered into 4 pieces. Cohen dropped to his knees sobbing. "It was my birthday present." Ragnarok ricocheted off the wreckage and slammed into Tate's dragon. The whole thing launched out of the ring straight at Tate's face and knocked 3 of his teeth clean out. He touched the gap, saw blood, and ran off crying. Brennan was the only one left. His Beyblade was wobbling backwards trying to escape. He dropped to his knees and shoved his bare hand into the ring to block Ragnarok. Too late. Ragnarok smashed through into his Beyblade and it exploded, a shard of plastic slicing his palm open. He yanked his hand back screaming. The top half of his Beyblade flew up and landed dead center in the bird poop on the picnic table. Ragnarok kept spinning alone in the middle of the ring. The whole playground exploded. "Marley! Marley! Marley!" Brennan stumbled toward Marley, clutching his hand. Cohen shuffling behind him, still sobbing. He stopped in front of her and stared at the ground. "I'm sorry." Marley's face slowly broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. She raised her middle finger. "I forgive you too." Then she pointed at the picnic table. "Loser licks the table." Both of them dropped to their knees and licked while the entire playground watched. Brennan slammed his Beyblade down onto the girl with Down syndrome's tray and shredded her.
This is the world's longest.
My little sister threw down my Nintendo and ran to the window. "Look, there's a rainbow. We need to find the pot of gold at the end of it so we can be rich." I was about to tell her the truth, but she was so excited she was bouncing up and down, and I couldn't bring myself to break the news. Okay, let's check it out." She grabbed my hand and dragged me outside, and we climbed the fence, and Isabella marched straight through mud that swallowed her boots. Leprechauns only give gold to hard workers. It's the rules. I laughed nervously and had no idea how she was going to react when she found out there was no gold. "So what do you even want the money for?" She hugged her backpack tighter. "It's a secret." I rolled my eyes because I already knew it was probably a new vintage Barbie doll for her collection. Suddenly, I looked up and saw the rainbow was starting to fade. Isabella started running faster, and I knew if I didn't want her childhood to end, I had to think of something fast. I pulled out the $500 of emergency money out of my phone case and hid it underneath a rock. I waved frantically. "Isabella, over here. I found something. I think it's the gold." Isabella sprinted as fast as her her little legs could carry her, and when she saw the money, she screamed so loud birds left the trees. I knew leprechauns were real. She held the dollar bills over her head while the last of the rainbow faded behind her. I thought it was finally over, but 3 days later she came to my room with a brand new Nintendo Switch 2. I bought this for you with the gold. My jaw dropped in shock. But your Barbie, I thought. She frowned like I'd said something crazy. I already have a bajillion of those. You've been saving for a new Switch for months. She bought me my dream with my own savings, and I'll make sure she'll never know it. My little sister threw down my Nintendo and ran to the window. Look, there's a rainbow. We need to find the pot of gold at the end of it so we can be rich. I was about to tell her the truth. The car jack slipped while Kendrick was under his grandpa's car, and the whole thing dropped onto him from the waist down. I grabbed the bumper and pulled until my hands shook, but it did not move. His parents were gone, my phone was dead, and I could not leave him to get help, so I screamed for the neighbors. Nobody came. I dropped to my knees next to him, shaking. I don't know what to do. His breathing was fast and shallow. Just stay with me, okay? His eyes started to drift, and I grabbed his hand. I had been stress-telling terrible jokes since my dad's funeral when I was 7, and people had been telling me to stop for my whole life. What happened next was either the worst thing or the best thing I have ever done. What do you call a car that falls on you? His eyes snapped open. Are you serious right now? A crushing disappointment. I am literally dying and you're telling jokes. What do you call a car that won't start? A carps. I hate you so much. His eyes were open and he was angry instead of fading away, so I kept going. Every time his eyes started to drift, I hit him with another one. What do you call a car with no tires? Literally your car right now. I am going to haunt you. You can't die. You still owe me $20. He was laughing and crying and screaming at the same time. I hate you. After 45 minutes, a neighbor pulled into their driveway, saw us, and called 911. I kept telling jokes in the ambulance because I couldn't stop. At the hospital, they rushed him back, and 3 hours later, the doctor came out. If he had lost consciousness, his blood pressure would have dropped, and he would have bled out. The only reason he was alive was because he was so mad about my bad jokes that it kept his blood pressure up. The car jack slipped while I held out my arm to shake my girlfriend's mom's hand for the first time, and she looked my tattoos up and down and gasped. You look like criminal, like the scary men in our neighborhood. My girlfriend Ike frowned. Ma, stop. He's an ex-MMA fighter. I politely nodded because I was determined to make a good impression no matter what. Her dad finished locking up the front door with a deadbolt and then stepped in front of me like I was a wild animal. He pointed a finger at my girlfriend. Me like last boy better. Ike crossed her arms in frustration. Let's just sit down and eat. I took the last seat at the table, and that's when I heard gunshots outside. Ike put her hand on mine and whispered, "Don't worry, it's just a sketchy neighborhood. We hear it all the time." He waved a hand at me. My Ike go to college. You end up in jail or dead. You take her down with you. I opened my mouth to tell him about how I have $1 million in savings from MMA fighting, but stopped when we heard the gun outside again. Suddenly, a bullet shot through the glass. Ike and her family immediately ducked under the table, and her mom was crying. Why is this happening? I clenched my fists and walked right up to the window. I got it. A man got ready to rush in, but I was already moving. I caught his wrist and slammed the gun loose against the frame. He tried to swing at my cheekbone with his other hand, but I dodged it, took him to the floor, and choked him out the way 10 years of fighting taught me. Her mom crawled out from under the table, took the hand she wouldn't shake, and held it in both of hers. You protect our family from scary man. You good husband. Her dad nodded politely, still shaking with fear. Thank you, son. I held out my arm to shake my girlfriend. The fat kid next door pounded on my door. Have you seen my chocolate bar? I opened up and he was already red in the face, jabbing a finger at my chest. My Hershey's cookies and cream bar, the big white one. Someone ate it. I shrugged. I haven't seen it. He immediately spun around and roared down the whole street. Whoever ate my chocolate is dead. You hear me? Dead. Everyone on the street froze because we all knew whoever ate it was screwed. He crossed his arms. Fine, I'll just have to find the criminal myself. He stormed into his house and came back outside with a remote-controlled drone and a roll of duct tape. More people gathered to watch as he started taping himself to the drone. Whoever took it better watch out. I'm coming for you. In seconds, he launched himself into the air, scanning every backyard and screaming that the thief couldn't hide from him. Doors opened all down the street and people ran out waving their own chocolate bars up at him, trying to talk him down. Someone held up a fresh Hershey's and he swatted it clean out of the air. It's not the same. I want mine. But the drone started sputtering under his weight, dipping toward the road while the duct tape started to peel. He looked around around frantically. Watch out! He started heading right towards me, and I sprinted so I wouldn't be the one to break his fall. He tumbled to the ground, and when I turned to get a closer look, I saw a corner of white wrapper poking out of his back pocket. "Check your back pocket," I shouted up at him. He reached back, yanked out a crushed empty Hershey's wrapper, and went still as the whole street fell silent. I ate it. Whoever ate it was screwed, and it was him. The drone gave one last sputter and pushed him straight into my bush, while his hand still gripped the empty wrapper. The fat kid next door pounded on my door. "Have you seen my chocolate bar?" I opened up and he was already red in the face, jabbing
No, other way.
A tornado was ripping roofs off houses and throwing cars, and when I saw it heading towards my house, I grabbed my son Toby and ran down the basement stairs. Toby shouted, "Daddy, I'm scared." "We're okay, buddy." But that's when the tornado shook the house, making Toby cry so hard he started choking. His weak heart would stop if he kept panicking, so I had to calm him down fast. I rubbed circles on his back, whispering, "Shh, I've got you." But sweat dripped from my forehead when I felt his heart pounding quicker. So I started singing his bedtime song, "Time for bed, my little guy." But my voice cracked when the tornado threw a car into our house, and the alarm blared above us. Toby screamed and dropped his dinosaur plushie. "Daddy, make it stop!" And his heart slammed against my chest. I knew I was running out of time, so I yanked my phone and played his favorite song instead. But Toby's eyes rolled back as his lips turned blue and his body went limp. I tapped his cheek. "Toby, no, stay with me, buddy." I didn't know what to do, but then I remembered seeing videos of people making songs with Suno, so I downloaded the app and hoped making a song would calm him down. "Buddy, you want to make the silliest song in the world with me?" Toby looked up with teary eyes and nodded. "What should it be about?" He sniffled. "Me being friends with dinosaurs." He told me everything they would do together, and his heart slowed down as I typed. Then Toby spoke into the mic so it'd sound like him singing, and when we picked the goofiest tune, we hit create. But then the tornado started tearing the house apart, and Toby's heart pounded so hard, I thought it would burst. "Don't let it get me, Daddy. It's okay, buddy. The song's almost done." And then Toby went quiet when the song started playing.
Dinosaur and me, we stomped through the mud. Big splashy steps, mud squishes up high.
When the noise died down, I set Toby down, his heart calmer than ever, and he grinned. "Daddy, can we make another song?" I laughed. "Yeah, buddy, as many as you want." And I opened Suno again. A tornado was ripping roofs off houses, and I set down the watering can and looked around at my girlfriend's 18 plants, proud I'd kept them alive while she was away. But then she opened the door and dropped her suitcase in horror. "What the hell did you do?" She gripped her head and sprinted to one of her plants, crouching beside it. I looked closely and realized one of the leaves at the bottom was slightly greener than the rest. I asked why that's a problem, but she immediately began throwing my clothes at me. "We're done. How could you let that leaf be more green?" Her eyes filled with tears, and I stopped laughing when the plate smashed against the wall near my head. I told her I can just buy her a new plant, but she slammed her hands on the counter. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard you say." Snot dripped from her nose as she called my mother. "Your son just destroyed my life forever. Please come get him." I was in disbelief and pointed at the 17 other perfect plants, asking why she's focused on the one slightly greener leaf and not the hundreds of perfect ones. But she was already on her knees, rubbing the leaf, whispering to it, "We're gonna sue him for this. He's gonna pay." Suddenly the door opened and my mom walked in. She saw my girlfriend talking to the plant in tears and asked, "What's going on?" I explained everything. My girlfriend wanted to sue me over a plant, and my mom looked at her like she's lost it. That's when my girlfriend stood up and slammed her hands on the counter. "It's not just a plant." She explained that this plant was a variegated Philodendron spiritus sancti, a rare and exotic plant she'd grown for 3 years, tracking the water, light, and temperature every day. I had a collector lined up ready to pay $40,000 for it. I would have paid off my student loans. She sobbed into the plant's soil. "One imperfect leaf is all it takes for the buyer to walk." I looked at her crying, then shrugged. "That's crazy, but you could have just said that before leaving me alone with it." I set down the watering can and looked around at my girlfriend's 18 plants, proud I'd